Hello and welcome back to the Comic Lyric Podcast, where we comically and literally review comics. I'm Ryan, also known as Comic Stan. I love comic books, but my co-host loves regular books, but I make him read comic books. And this week, I made him read Sentry for some reason. And with me, as always, my aforementioned observant co-host is Jamie.
Did you not like it, Ryan?
We'll get into it. We'll get into the nitty-gritty.
How's things?
I feel like last week with the caffeine in the morning, I'm like, I wish we could do that more often. Because now I'm kind of relying on like my own, I'm reaching inside for my own like source of energy.
Right.
And realizing that I don't have it naturally because, I don't know, I'm dead inside. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, we do pick a funny day to do. Are you suggesting we should stop recording on Monday evenings?
I think, again, any day, mornings, I think would be good just for the caffeine intake, you know? I'm fine to crash in the middle of the day as long as I reap the rewards of like actual genuine enthusiasm and excitement rather than me pushing forward like, I was thinking of Lie Back and Think of England, but that's a different thing. It's keep calm and carry on.
Keep calm and carry on.
Yeah.
I mean, the only way we could make that consistently and feasibly work is if we did a remote recording really early in the morning before we both started work, like 6 a.m. full of caffeine.
You know, I'm actually fine with this time. Anyway, like I said earlier, we are covering a lesser-known character, even though he's like the original Avenger. Like one of the biggest Avengers of all time, but people seem to have forgotten him for some reason. Anyway, we're talking about Sentry, and that's kind of a double meaning I was just doing there.
Was he an Avenger?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? So the reason I'm acting all weird here is because Sentry is a character where they kind of try to do an interesting thing where they introduce a character claiming he's been there the whole time. So that's kind of the joke. I'm doing a bit. I don't know if have we done bits on the podcast before? Is this a new thing?
Have we ever done a bit, Ryan?
I've never joked in my life. I'm deadly serious about everything I say, as you can tell from my tone and inflection.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how somebody with your tonality would tell a joke.
I don't think it's even possible.
Well, I do know how somebody with your exact tonality would tell a joke, because I've seen you do it many times because you did used to be a stand-up comedian.
Yep, official failed stand-up comedian. As are most podcasters. I meant that. I was serious.
That wasn't a joke.
Despite
that was a serious statement. How many of the stand-ups that you worked with in London now also have podcasts?
I have no idea.
We should try and build a network of that little era of London stand-ups who didn't quite make it, who all now have podcasts.
You may recognise or not such names as. But yes, so Sentry is a Marvel character who is about to hit the big time because he's about to make his MCU debut in the Thunderbolts. Actually, he will have just made it when this episode comes out.
Oh, exciting.
And what's interesting is, I mean, we were going to do this anyway because, you know, synergy.
Corporate synergy.
SEO tie-in, all that bollocks. But what's interesting is Thunderbolts is the MCU film that everyone was a bit like, why are they making this one? But it's maybe like early reception, maybe on track for being one of the best ones for the past, one of the best MCU films for the past year or two.
I mean, there haven't been any good ones in the past year or two.
Exactly. I mean, I'd have to, when was the last good one? Film. God, was it Spider-Man No Way Home? It definitely wasn't Captain America Brave New World. That was very mid. I can't remember what the one before that one was. What is time? Anyway.
The last good one was Thanos, surely.
No way. Spider-Man No Way Home was after Endgame.
Yeah. I don't remember what happened.
Spoilers for film came out a couple of years ago. They had Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
Oh, yeah, that one. That one was all right.
Exactly.
That was okay.
So, yeah.
It wasn't as good as everyone said it was, though.
I thought it was really good while also having some very obvious plot holes and contrivances.
Yeah, there was issues with it.
Yeah.
It was cool because we got to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield.
Yes. I think what that kind of put it in perspective for me of like, we are ones who will criticize and pick apart, not just comic books, but any kind of media we enjoy. That one really sold it to me of if a film or anything, book, comic, whatever, if it's fun enough and you enjoy enough, you will forgive plot holes and contrivances. To the point where someone will be like, there's a massive plot hole. And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess there is. Whereas that it's a chart to like plot hole to enjoyment. And if it gets past a certain point, then you go, oh, that really irks me now. You pointed that plot hole. You know where I'm going with this. Spider-Man was fun despite the plot contrivances.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like this, which maybe not quite that level, to be fair. So, Sentry is about to become maybe a big character now because of his introduction in the Thunderbolts film, which, again, is out right now. Maybe it's doing well. Maybe it's a huge bomb. Who knows? But the point is, Sentry is now known, and we're going to deep dive into the character with their actual introduction into the Marvel Universe, which actually happened in the year 2000. So
is this the first Sentry comic?
First Sentry appearance, comic, everything.
And essentially, they're trying to retroactively make us think, or it retroactively states the Sentry was always there, we just didn't see them, right?
Yes.
That's kind of the premise of the comic book.
Exactly. There's been wiped from the collective consciousness, essentially. Apparently, it was created by writer Paul Jenkins and artist Jae Lee, with apparently uncredited conceptual contributions by Rick Veitch. But what's interesting is that they apparently originally came up with the character because they wanted to do the sad, lonely, pudgy, middle-aged character guy who's like reflecting on having been a superhero in the past.
Right, and it's hard to do that with a brand new hero.
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's what led them into the, maybe he's a hero and everyone's forgotten kind of thing. So I think that's an interesting concept to start with. Execution-wise, I think we're going to get into the kind of nitty-gritty of like how that worked out. What did you generally think of the comic?
Honestly, to start with, I found the jumping around of the art styles a bit confusing. And then when I started to get into it and work out what was happening, I'm like, this is them kind of pretending that Sentry had been there through all these different eras of Marvel. So I kind of think the gimmick is quite fun. But beyond that, it didn't really have a lot of substance.
Yeah, no, I think I'm on board with you on that. Like I said, I like the concept and the whole kind of vehicle of the character. I think it's just the execution which just left a little bit to be desired.
And you were excited about this one for that reason, weren't you? Because of the concept.
Yeah, I was interested in the fact that, I mean, we've read however many superheroes and they've all kind of been introduced in the same way of like, here's a new character, get on board. Here's their villain, watch them defeat them. Isn't this all cool? And I thought this was such a kind of left turn in terms of introducing a character where you're introducing them at their lowest point.
Yeah.
And then there are, as we'll get into in the spoilers and such, there are then those kind of left turns of how they take the character later on. I thought it was especially interesting as well, as we've just talked about Superman. This is kind of Marvel Superman.
Yeah.
But they're also, in true Marvel fashion, making a very powerful character and then also kind of immediately kneecapping them or being like, no one remembers them and they're not a hero anymore and all that kind of stuff. And other stuff we'll get into later as well.
Yeah.
But I thought that was just an interesting comparison, whereas DC, obviously they got their Superman from the 40s. Superman is Superman. You're not going to change that. But they've also introduced a lot of other characters later on who are like, look at this really powerful character. Now they're fighting crime and beating up bad guys and saving the world. Isn't this great? Whereas Marvel's like, he's sad, he's depressed, he's drinking, and he's Superman.
He's the most powerful being in the world, but he did just piss himself.
Exactly. So I thought that was an interesting jumping off point for a character as well. And in terms of the whole story as well, I think they had loftier ideals that I think were kind of restrained by trying to fit it in the mold of the traditional superhero mold, if that makes sense.
Oh, do you think there's some of that happening here?
I think if there wasn't a requirement for like, okay, so we're starting off in this weird place, but we kind of need to get to like a more traditional superhero part at the end. I think like this is something I could imagine coming out now or in recent years from like Image or something, but it wouldn't be then leading to the norm. It would be like they would continue the weirdness.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's interesting seeing this done in the noughties as well.
Well, because I thought this was more recent. So if we get onto the arting quite quickly.
Starting with the arting. And I think there's a bit to say on the arting, but go ahead.
I thought the art was really good.
See, here's the thing. I'm on a weird kind of fence with this one, right? So it's very similar art style to what we did last week, which was Superman versus the Elite. What's so funny about truth, justice, and the American way? I generally, I see the naughty style across both these titles. I'm not a huge fan of this style.
See, I liked last week's art more than you as well, didn't I? Turns out I just like the way comic books looked in the early 2000s.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, probably. But what I will say is, despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of this art style on an aesthetic level, I think it really worked here because what I don't like about it, for me, kind of contributed to almost like a waking dream style atmosphere, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of characters had like an unnecessary amount of shadow on their faces, and like there's a lot of weird perspectives where it's like, why are you looking at them like this? The first issue opens with the character Bob Reynolds. He's woken up in the middle of the night and it's all kind of weird and atmospheric and you're not sure what's real and what's not. I think the artwork did a lot to contribute to that feeling. And continuing even past that, he's meeting other heroes in the Marvel universe and stuff. It all feels a bit like, is this actually happening? And I don't know if this is intentional or not. I think it was just the noise art style. But for me, reading it now, retrospectively, I'm kind of like, this art style, which I don't like because it doesn't feel like it's telling the story very clearly with this art style.
Yeah.
With this story, actually works for me. So this is why I'm on the fence about it.
One of the things I quite like is that when they were introducing characters, they chose different eras to show us Sentry with.
Like, so, when he first met them, or just when he knew them in the past, basically.
Yeah, so we saw him with some of the Avengers in what looked like a sort of Golden Age comic strip.
Yeah.
And it's original chunky suit, gold suit, Iron Man. It's early Thor. And then we see him with Spider-Man, and it's more kind of like 80s, 90s house style Spider-Man, kind of just pre-Black Spider.
Yeah.
It's that kind of era of Spidey. And, you know, when we kind of see him with different people, we see him in different eras.
One of my favorites was, I don't know if you clocked this if you haven't read it, but there was a bit where his flashback is him kind of getting angry at the scientist who created the serum that made him Sentry. And while he's having a go with this scientist, he's actually, the whole style is of Dark Knight Returns Frank Miller Batman. And he's
I wouldn't have clocked
exactly,
that.
Yeah. So that's why for me, and this is that thing, if you can put stuff in like that, it doesn't ruin it if you don't get it. But if you do get it, it's a bonus.
It's really cool.
So for me to be like, oh, that's like that style, like, and it was the time that was the 90s then.
Yeah.
So or late 80s, teetering on 90s. But it's that kind of like, oh, that's really cool. Like, and it fit the context of him being like a bit more dark and a bit more kind of angrier superhero. It's like, well, obviously like a Frank Miller Batman is going to fit that kind of thing. But yeah, I did enjoy the flashbacks and the comic book style. Yeah. So it's not even just, it's the 60s or the 80s. It's the Marvel comics from that time.
Yeah, totally.
Showing them like that. So yeah, I really appreciate all that. And again, the art style was very weird, but I think it contributed.
I thought it was quite grounded.
I think one little example, and I didn't take a picture of it, unfortunately, but I should have, was the Spider-Man. When he meets Spider-Man, there's just always some unnecessary black shadow on Spider-Man's face every time. And maybe that's a more realistic portrayal of talking to someone who's wearing a mask at night on a building top. But for comics, it was a weird choice.
Yeah.
But again, when the question being asked of this whole series is like, is this real? Is what's happening like true? And I think it helped kind of create that mysterious vibe that was going for it. But yeah, so art-wise, I think that's pretty much that. Story is, I mean, do you want to tell the story?
No, you've
gone a few weeks without telling it.
I know, and I've gotten away with it. Again, I don't want to.
Okay.
Would you like
Is it because you don't remember?
There wasn't a lot going on. I'm going to be honest with you.
A
whole lot. I feel that I've already kind of given us a rundown you've already given us an accurate rundown of the story.
Yeah.
Washed up, alcoholic, former superhero that nobody remembers as a superhero. That's kind of what happens.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I mean, I think where the story is, it's really all predicated on this one kind of point, which is, here's a guy who might be a superhero. Yeah. Like, I think when this first came out, because I know now, I know now the Sentry characters, a lot of other people do, but so going back and reading it, you know kind of where it's going to end. When it originally was coming out, was there a question, do you think, of, is this guy actually a superhero or not? Do you think they were successful in actually making readers question that or not?
It's hard in retrospect, isn't it?
Yeah, it's when people say like, "Oh, you should watch this." It's like if you're living now and you have never seen The Sixth Sense, but you know the twist, and then someone's like, "Oh no, you should watch the film to get the experience of it." You can never really experience it if you know what's the reveal at the end.
Yeah, the twist. Yeah, The Sixth Sense is a really great example because the twist at the end of that film completely spoils it if you know the film, doesn't it?
And this is why I'm so like spoiler careful.
Yeah.
It's not because I think some people worry about backlash or whatever. I'm just of the opinion of you can only experience something spoiler free once. And if you do have that ruined for you, you take away that person's ability to enjoy it in that way.
And you are generally more spoiler sensitive than I am.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. Yeah. And for myself as well, because I don't think I think you've got a lot of things where you're just like, oh, just tell me the ending anyway, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas
I don't feel that it really spoils my enjoyment of anything, but that might be because of the brain that I exist in, whereby there's so much going on in my little monkey brain when I'm watching things that I'm not really fully focused on it anyway.
Right. Whereas I tend to focus on things if I can at least lock away my phone to avoid distractions. And
well, I mean, I've done a good job of that recently, haven't I?
Well, that's something we'll get into in the end. It's a little free advertising for something that's not even really advertising technically. But anyway. But
it's a lifestyle, Brian.
But I did find, again, for the naughties, I think this was an interesting way to start introducing a character. So this was part of what they called the Marvel Knights run of comics.
Yeah, so what's this whole deal?
Marvel Knights was basically like, what if like a darker version of superheroes? Like it was kind of that.
I don't think this is that much darker than...
I think it was darker.
This is certainly not any darker than that Superman we were reading the other week.
No, but I think that it's part of a trend. So it's not that like
it's
not that like comics can only go in this category to do stuff. It's more of like, let's advertise this is a range of dark comics.
Yeah.
While also having your cake and eat it too by keeping the fun, child-friendly stuff as your mainline stuff.
Yeah.
You're like, if you want the dark stuff, come over here.
And there's a guy in a trench coat.
Exactly.
And he opens it up and there's a copy of Sentry in it.
Yeah, or like The Punisher or something.
Yeah.
Or Moon Knight or, Venom, whoever.
Some manga porn.
Yeah. But I do think that this kind of, it fits that darkness aesthetic because it's not so much like a, hey, I'm here to save the day and everything's great. Is like, it's someone who's waking up with like no purpose and kind of aimless in life. And I mean, there's a bit where the issue literally starts him waking up at his home in the middle of the night and he's going to let the dog out and he's just like monologuing internally about who he should be something great.
Yeah.
And I don't think the adultness of the Marvel Knights series is not necessarily like sex, drugs, and violence. It's more like, when you grow up to be an adult, you're going to be sad and depressed. You're going to wake up and you're going to wonder what it's all about, and you're going to regret not doing the great things that you could have done. Like that
this
kind
is
of
very
adultness.
true.
And I think that's where they were going for this. And to be fair, I think that is the most interesting part of the whole series.
Yeah.
I think the image of a middle-aged chubby guy standing in his boxers in his kitchen in the middle of the night going, I was a superhero once. I think that's way more interesting than when they lift the veil of everything and it starts to become more traditional superhero slop,
Yes. No, I agree with you. That first issue was probably the most interesting one, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I did like what they did there. Maybe this is an art thing, I know, but they literally have him almost next to the 60s version of him, which is like muscled and in a suit and stuff. It literally has it next to guy with protruding stomach coat hanging over his boxes kind of thing. But yeah, so that whole scenario of just, again, him standing in his house dead of night kind of thing, it then builds up with, he has this weird kind of hallucination part with the dog and the antagonist, the Void, who he's like, the Void's coming back and I need to do something about it kind of thing. And I like that they frame it where he reacts to this dog thinking it's possessed by this shadow demon enemy. And then his wife comes down and he's just on the floor. She's like, oh, for God's sake.
Not again.
Yeah. Which again, if it traditional comics from this time or any time, she would have been like, oh my God, Robert, are you okay? But the fact that and I made a note of it, she made the note of, you don't even have the guts to ruin your life in front of me anymore. I was like, that's such a good line. Because that encompasses how this has happened and how used to it she is and how she's done with him already.
Yeah.
Like, that whole first issue, I think, it's probably the best issue of the 5-issue run. Technically 6 if you count the big battle at the end. But yeah, it's that first issue I think like, oh, something really interesting is happening here. And then the look of him opening the cupboard to be like, my old super suit. and it's his coat with a makeshift cape pegged onto the back, and him just putting that on and walking out into the rain. I was like, is this is why I was kind of asking myself the question, would I already just assume that he is a superhero?
Or would you have assumed that this was a crazy man?
Exactly. And I think this, again, helps with them publishing under this Marvel Knights thing. Because if it was just a mainline Marvel comic, they're like, new superhero of the century, or, new in quote marks.
That's how they would have had to have advertised it. Whereas with this, they could be a bit more ambiguous. And and I suppose there are quite a few little moments where those ambiguity is built into it, right?
Yeah. But the problem is, after the first issue, they very quickly break that in maybe a way they thought, like maybe the writer thought was more subtle than it is. But the second issue cuts to him standing on the top of like a half-built skyscraper, and Mr. Fantastic comes over. And the problem is,
Richards looks great, by the way.
Yeah. Good,
like
good stretching drawing in this.
Yeah, it's a very classic sort of graying around the sides, Reed Richards.
Yeah, he's that classic grey sideburns. Or the like beginning of mutton chops. I don't know what you call those like top parts there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the bit where you do start to go grey first as a man.
Yeah, but his are like almost like tips. Like
it's like he's got frosted tips, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's that point where he is then standing on this skyscraper that I go, again, it's hard to know because I already know he's the Sentry.
Yeah.
But I think if I didn't, I think for me that would have been the point of going, he is a superhero then.
Yeah.
Because he made it he's a normal guy who made it to the top of a skyscraper. And even Reed Richards like, who are you and what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I think, and this is why, I mean, we had a brief conversation beforehand, and we said, not sure how much we're going to be able to say about this comic in this episode. I think the most interesting aspect of comics like these is to think what could have made it better. Yeah. Like, are there little tweaks that could have made it better as opposed to just not doing the whole thing? I think here,
as opposed to just not doing it at all.
Probably shouldn't have read it or wrote it to begin with.
Do you think that's what would have made it better, Ryan, if it just didn't exist?
That's that, like, you're just trying to be a cutting reviewer. Like, it would have been better if you just hadn't have bothered in the first place.
Yeah.
But I think what would have improved this is if his first interaction with Reed Richards wasn't top of a skyscraper, if he was just in the Baxter building or something, just like someone where a normal person could get to, but then the intrigue comes where Mr. Fantastic literally says here, how did you get past all my security? Like, there must be something about you got past all that. I think it would have been more supportive of the ambiguity and the mystery for him to have got to a place that a normal person can physically get to, but to also have Mr. Fantastic be like, there's security systems that should have stopped you getting in here. So you could have had that riding the fence, both things. But again, he was at the top of a skyscraper. He's like, well, that's obviously a superhero.
He can probably fly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Then you start getting into the whole mystery of like, Reed, we're best friends, don't you remember me? Kind of thing. And I think, again, Reed Richards, he remembers too quickly. Or there's that maybe
it's
they were trying to fit so much in this 5-issue run, like, and they could only fit it in when they could. But I think very quickly Reed's like, there's something there. And I think that's, again, a bit detrimental to what they could have carried, at least till issue 3, you know?
I mean, it also does stand to reason that if anybody was going to have that revelation quickly, it would have been Reed Richards, because he is very clever.
He's one of the smartest in the universe, or at least on Marvel's Earth, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's him, Tony Stark.
Now, Doctor Doom, obviously.
Yeah.
A recent addition, Moon Girl, who is meant to be the smartest, I think, now, technically.
Isn't that Reed Richards' daughter?
No, that's Valeria. Moon Girl is a new character. She's heard Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. And she's a super intelligent child who hangs out with a red T-Rex, basically.
Why are we not reading that?
Not very popular. I mean, I haven't heard, people don't really bang on about it.
Is it not very good?
I wouldn't say good or not. It's more just she hasn't made as much of an impact. She's not like a bloody Miles Morales.
Right, yeah. Charles Xavier is quite smart as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's pretty smart. What's interesting here is, this is more for like more Marvel nerds generally, is the characters he kind of approaches. So after Reed Richards, he speaks to a few different characters.
Speaks to Peter, doesn't he?
Yep. Well, he calls Spider-Man Peter, and Peter's like, who's this Peter you speak of? It's like, good one, Spidey. You really threw him off the scent there.
Yeah. Oh, who is this Peter Parker?
He like, what? I mean, who? But he speaks to a few characters, and of the characters that kind of are part of this whole thing are Reed Richards, Spider-Man he speaks to, but this isn't part of the discussion. Reed Richards, Professor Xavier, and then Doctor Strange comes into as well. You're kind of seeing the early buildings of the Marvel's version of the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Literally called the Marvel Illuminati.
Yeah.
But they are characters who are representative of different aspects of the Marvel Universe.
He's not just gone straight to the Avengers, has he? He's gone to Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four, Charles Xavier of the X-Men. Doctor Strange, I suppose, is kind of Avengers adjacent.
Yeah, is he definitely not. If he's not, I don't think he's ever been like a card-carrying member, but he's one of those guys there where it's like, well, it's magic shit, so we should probably get Strange involved.
We should probably call Richard.
Yeah. Steven
Strange. Of course.
Why would it had to be alliterative? You knew
Richard
this.
Strange is a guy I did karate with in the 90s.
Did he show you the magic for shield things? Or?
He did, yeah. That's where I learned that stuff.
Nice. I figured you must have learned it somewhere. You weren't just like a natural, just every time we were recording, you were doing. I was like, knock it out. We're gonna get on the recording.
Yeah, I'm a wizard, not a sorcerer.
Yes,
exactly. For my D&D nerds.
Represent. But yeah, it's the Marvel Illuminati after this became like a bigger thing.
Did it?
Yeah. They with a couple of things they did. They were handling the incursions during the build up to Secret Wars, where realities were colliding with each other, and they were like, we should probably fix it so ours wins and everyone else, all these other realities get destroyed. They launched the Hulk into space when they
do what?
To just get rid of him.
Did it work?
For a bit. Yes or no, because he was gone for a while, and then he did Planet Hulk, was a run of comics where he was on like that alien world, and he fought like gladiatorial fights over there.
Oh, they based a film on that, didn't they?
They incorporated it into Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And then while he was there, he settled down, had a kid, and he was like, actually, I'm pretty happy now. I'm going to stay here. And then the rocket that they sent him in the first place blew up and killed his kid or something. And he was I'm going back.
Surely if Hulk gets happy, he just turns back into Banner.
It was something about the planet that made him like smart, not even smart Hulk, but like not animalistic Hulk. He was like normal intelligence Hulk while on this planet.
Yeah.
And then, his kid died and exploded. The ship that brought him in, that the Illuminati sent him in, bloody exploded for some reason. Killed his kid. He was like, right, I'm going back and I'm kicking ass. And then that led to World War Hulk series, where it's just him destroying the world and basically kicking off of them for shooting him into space in the first place. So that's what the Illuminati does. And I thought it was interesting that it looked like that would have fit into this story here, but they hadn't created them yet. But it's possible they could have looked at this gone, these guys seem to be like doing all the important stuff, like almost from the shadows.
So it's Xavier, Strange.
Yeah, so they represent
Richards,
aspects of the world.
Tony Stark?
Yep, Tony Stark. Black Panther.
Yeah.
Black Bolt from the Inhumans.
Maybe what's his face with the eye patch?
Nick Fury. I don't think he was proper in it. I don't know if he interacted with them or not, but he wasn't like
I never really see Nick Fury in the comics. Is that because I don't read a lot of Avengers comics?
Yeah, he kicks around every once in a while. Like he's normally doing more Shield stuff, which is more kind of grounded, like Soviet spy kind of stuff.
Counterintelligence against Hydra.
Exactly. Yeah.
But so is he like an Avengers adjacent dude, or is he more of a Captain America dude?
He's definitely more Captain America, because they work together on similar level stuff. Like if Thor's fighting Ragnarok in Asgard, it's like, better get that guy with the eye patch. Whereas Captain America, it's more like we're all doing covert stuff, and he would help in this scenario. But yeah, he's definitely not an Illuminati member. I think they were quite big on them being like, we're the most powerful, intelligent people in the world. So a guy who just works for a spy agency isn't going to
probably not that useful.
Come under that. Yeah, Namor, he was Atlantis, and he was there. Steve Rogers was in it for a bit, and then they started destroying other realities for the incursion stuff. And he was like,
Cap wouldn't be.
He was like, I'm not having any of this. And they were like, right, wipe his memory, kick him out.
How many times has Steve Rogers had his fucking memory wiped?
I mean, at least once, probably more. But again, speaking of memory wipe, that's brings us neatly around back to the comic.
Doesn't it just?
Because again, this is where they start to get to the mystery of like, why can't anyone remember this? And I think maybe they were making a bit of mystery with like, was it the Void? And maybe he kind of, but then like Sentry's only back because he remembered the Void, but maybe that was not meant to happen and blah, blah, blah. So I think maybe they tried to make a bit of mystery with like, why is it and no one can remember? But again, then I think they break that mystery by having Reed. So they do an interesting thing where Sentry's like, remember the unicorn, and then disappears. And Reed's like, what? And then he
what?
What? And then he goes home. He's like, Sue, is there a unicorn in the little statue in the corner there? She's like, yeah, I think so. It's like, why is that there? I have no idea. Then there's a VCR tape in it.
Yeah.
Let's put it in. As soon as the VCR tape was Reed Richards himself, I think that's the point we go, okay, so it was them who did it. Like Reed and Strange have obviously done it to themselves. So I think a bit of mystery then becomes like, why was that done in the first place? I thought it was interesting from there is you do have him then meeting with the Hulk and a little, you know me, I like those little details to like flesh out a story and make it kind of a bit more believable. Yeah. I like that for one thing, Sentry and Hulk were mates, apparently. Yeah. Probably quite rare for Hulk to be mates with. He wasn't even friends with the Avengers and he was on a team with them. But maybe like Sentry was so powerful that Hulk was like respected his power or something.
Yeah.
But I thought what was interesting was Hulk remembers the Sentry.
Yeah.
And I think that was interesting how they made that possible because whenever this memory wipe thing happened,
he was Banner.
Exactly. So I like little added details like that, which make it
it makes it
thought of. You know,
it makes. I mean, they had a hero who is two people in one body, where only one of them can be present at a time. So it stands to reason that either the Hulk or Banner would have not been affected, whichever one wasn't there, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
And so, it does make sense, doesn't it?
And that even says a little more about the Hulk-Banner relationship dynamic, which is something I'm always fascinated by, like all the different ways they represent Bruce and Hulk is
I was literally about to ask about that, because again, it comes up here, doesn't it? Yeah. Like, it's quite important to the story. And it's like, because the MCU had a very specific way of dealing with it.
Yeah, they were basically two separate beings, essentially.
Yeah.
But then they merge in Endgame to become Smart Hulk. And I thought that was actually a bit of a detriment to the Hulk story, because I find it more interesting when they are separate beings or separate personalities. There's
jeopardy, isn't there?
There's what?
There's jeopardy. And, you know, there's tortured Banner.
Yes, yeah.
And then the Hulk, which is sort of a dangerous weapon that, they started bringing like the morality of being a superhero into the Avengers thing. Particularly as Tony Stark started to mature. You know, there were times where Tony was like, look at this kid that we killed when we were kicking ass, I think is a thing that very specifically happens in an Avengers film. And so the idea that like you've got the tortured genius who turns into a blunt instrument that they can just use to smash anything in front of him is a really compelling idea. And then, because to me, Smart Hulk is just happy Banner.
Yeah, and it's, again, but this is the inherent problem is there's so many iterations that you could get examples where that supports it and then others that go against it.
And that MCU one, to me, is like, the Hulk is kind of gone now. It's just Banner in the Hulk's body. It's the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah. And the problem is, I think it would have been a payoff if there was some kind of repercussion from doing that.
Yeah.
And not to say they won't do it, but they haven't done it yet. And I think that's what I was kind of looking for with Endgame a little bit, with something like Banner's like, I've fixed it, like it's my mind in Hulk's body and everything's great now. And I was kind of waiting as a bit of a Hulk fan for that kind of like, that Hulk personality is going to come back or something's going to happen. They teed it off really well in Infinity War, where Hulk wouldn't come out.
Yes.
He wouldn't come out because he got his ass handed to him by Thanos. So he's just like, nope, not doing it now. And Bruce is like, the one time I actually do need you to come out and sort things out.
It's that first time we see Tony with the nanobot suit, isn't it?
In Infinity War, yeah.
And he tries to get the Hulk out and he's like, we're going through a thing.
Yeah. But then they really good CGI when he's in the Hulkbuster suit.
Yeah.
And he's like, come on. And Hulk starts to appear in his face. He goes, no, and then retreats again. Yeah. So I thought they did that really well. And it looked like they were teeing up for Bruce Banner in the Hulkbuster just to do something in this fight.
To be useful.
Yeah. And then I think I and a lot of other people thought, because what they did, bloody sneaky Marvel, they had a trailer that had the Hulk running towards the camera in Wakanda.
Yeah.
So that made people think, well, the Hulk's going to appear at some point then. Like, while you're watching the film, if you remember that point from the trailer, you go, well, that you probably see what's going to happen. And then he doesn't. And it's a bit like, why put that in there in the first place? They seem to be teeing up for a point where Bruce Banner in the Hulk Buster Iron Man suit, getting beaten up by the big Thanos guy, henchman or whatever. And then what you could have had was him going like, oh no, it's all over, I'm going to blow. And then Hulk busts out of the Hulk Buster Iron.
Hulk's out of the Hulk Buster suit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that was the direction they were going to go. And then the last minute, they were like, actually, nah, we'll do smart Hulk wearing glasses in the next one.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what they were doing with that. Again, in the comics, there's every kind of iteration of like, they're just two sides of the same personality. Oh no, they're actually completely separate people and they hate each other, essentially. Like, and then, my favorite Hulk comic naturally is Immortal Hulk from Al Ewing, which we covered.
Yeah, I like that.
Which got into more like a supernatural, like demon from hell kind of aspect of the Hulk and how Gamma is actually gateway to hell kind of stuff and all that. That's my favorite version, so that's the one I choose to believe is canonical, essentially. But so, back to Sentry.
I could talk about Hulk for a little while.
I do think the art, mentioning the art again, I think this was the creepiest looking Hulk that I've seen in a while.
Right.
And that's even including Immortal Hulk, which I think is more of like a dark horror aesthetic. This was like, he just looks almost like sad and angry and
a bit twisted.
It was a bit of kind of uncanny valley because he had like the most human looking face I think I've seen on a Hulk in this. And again, with the darkness and the overuse of shadow and stuff, it just felt like a dream almost, where you've just got like a weird Hulk in your dream who's talking to you, and it did look especially creepy. I again, whether that was intentional or not, like it's me going about being like, oh, the art was really cool because it made it feel weird and dreamlike, and it made the Hulk really creepy. And the art's like, we didn't intend for any of that at all.
That's not what we intended to
happen. But that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Still, at this point, you've got Sentry with his cape, his pegged-on cape, which I think was good. And then very soon after this, you have him then changing to like the full Sentry suit.
Yeah.
Again, like I think it would have been cool if till the last minute you had the pegged on, weird, the makeshift costume. I think would have been more interesting to have for longer,
Yeah, but a makeshift costume is a superhero origin story staple. They always do it at some point.
Yeah, but this is to an extreme of like that doesn't look good at all.
But the makeshift costume was kind of teeing him up as being a bit of a weirdo madman.
Yes, and that's why I wanted it for longer.
But then when he was in the proper costume, it sort of looks right on him in a way that it shouldn't.
Oh yeah, well he looks more traditional superhero, obviously.
Yeah, but he should have a beer gut hanging out of it all the time.
Well, Sentry powers, apparently, it's the power of 1,000 exploding suns, and it can take the beer gut off as well.
Yeah, this is it. It knocks off a beer gut in seconds.
Exactly. And it kind of makes you wonder as well, did he have the beer gut initially because that's just his natural state? Or is there like much more of his powers come from his mind, so if he sees himself as this kind of
slob,
then that's his body just becomes that. So it's a real kind of chicken and egg situation potentially.
It's interesting though, because he is very overpowered for the Marvel Universe.
Well, he's the Superman equivalent, essentially.
But they've had a few Superman equivalents, because Captain Marvel, before it was, what's her face?
Carol Danvers.
Before it was Carol Danvers, there was a male Captain Marvel who had very Superman-y powers, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, Superman in the sense that he could fly and had strength, but I think that's where the limits of the comparisons, because then it was like laser blasting from his hands and that kind of stuff. Yeah. He was a Kree alien. He was an alien like Superman, but he looked more like an alien than a human. So, but that's, I think when you get into those comparisons, you then like, does every superhero who can fly and has super strength, are they just a Superman clone?
Yeah,
like, that's the debate you get into.
Again, OG Superman didn't fly. He could jump over a building.
He could leap tall bounds.
Yeah, he could leap tall bounds. I think he could leap. It was the same like distance relative to his height that a praying mantis can jump, wasn't it? It was the way they described it.
So it was like a skyscraper was what he could jump over or something.
Yeah, he could jump over a skyscraper.
We haven't checked the math on that, but I think that's what the comic was going for, the original.
Whereas now he can hold the Earth in the sun's orbit.
Yeah, now he can pull planets with a big enough chain and that kind of stuff.
But Carol Danvers feels very Superman-y to me.
She ain't got the cape. If anyone, I think maybe Thor is almost, in terms of aesthetic, a little closer to Superman.
Not
with
in terms of power, though. Vision. Now, Vision's powers are quite Superman-y.
He's got even more powers, but like he's got the Superman powers plus. So yeah, I see what you mean there.
And there's an irony because the thing that kills him is taking one of the stones off his head, isn't it?
Only in the MCU.
Right.
Yeah.
So is Vision not Tony Stark's AI in the comic books?
No. So I'm going to mark the little tangent on the history of Vision. He is. So Ultron was the AI created by Hank Pym, Ant-Man, in the comics. They changed it for Iron Man in the MCU. And then Ultron, in the comics, he makes Vision as almost like a spy plan to infiltrate the Avengers. So that's why he looks like a superhero with a cape. Because he was like, they don't know who you are. Just tell them you're a new superhero, and they'll let anyone into the Avengers. So you can just waltz right into Avengers Mansion or whatever.
There's a guy with a bow and arrow. You'll be fine.
You can fly. They'll take bloody anyone. And so when he's in, then he's like a spy for Ultron, and maybe he doesn't even realize it. And then it's the whole he then realizes and fights against his creator and becomes his own person. So that's Vision in the comics, and then in the MCU, he's a body created by Ultron to be the ultimate body he will put himself into, powered by the Infinity Stone. And then obviously they're like, no, we'll put Jarvis the Butler in, and that'll be fine. But yeah, so very different kind of comparisons, very different origins compared to comics in the MCU for Vision.
Imagine being Bettany and getting that script.
Oh, he talks about it. He's like, because he said it went from him just doing voiceover, the first one, and then they were like, yeah, we're probably going to lead to you becoming this character. And he's like, okay, what do I have to do? It's like, you're going to have to stand around a lot. It's like, do I have to wear makeup and costume? It's like, no, we'll just do CGI.
We'll do the
we'll put dots on your face, and you don't have to do much.
What's his first name? Charles Bettany?
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
But yeah, I imagine him finding that out, because he just did voice work in the first 3 Iron Man films, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then to find out, oh, by the way, you're going to be an Avenger, and you're going to be a pretty important Avenger for like the late stage MCU. It's like, fuck, am I getting a pay rise for this?
Yep. Can I negotiate a bigger contract?
Because he hadn't done anything huge. He's a great actor.
Yeah. Biggest thing was probably Knight's Tale.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Hilarious story from Paul Bettany.
Yeah.
He was in they did WandaVision, the TV show, for one of the first proper Marvel MCU shows.
Yeah.
And it was the series was coming out week to week, and it was leading up to his big crescendo, and everyone's speculating about, like, is Mephisto the character going to be introduced, like, or is someone else going to come back? Is one of the X-Men going to come back? Is Wanda going to be revealed to be a mutant finally? Like, all this speculation. And Paul Bettany was in an interview, and he goes, yeah, we did some really great stuff on the series, like the fans are going to see. I finally got to work with an actor who I've admired for a really long time, and I'm really excited for everyone to get to see that as well. So immediately everyone's like, who have they brought in to play Mephisto, or whoever character they're going to play? Which actor have they brought in? He's talking about. Gets to the series finale, and what happens in the story is another Vision turns up.
It's him.
He was talking about himself.
That's so fucking funny. Well, I found out today because I was just doing some Googling, weirdly. Do you know who he's married to?
I have read this, but I've forgotten. Who is it?
The little girl from the Labyrinth.
I haven't seen Labyrinth, so
she's not a little girl anymore. She was a little girl in the 80s.
Stress that.
But no, it's the actor. I don't know her fucking name, but it's the actor who played the little girl in the Labyrinth. Is his wife.
Yeah, not to downplay that in like a tone or whatever, but my thinking was just, newsflash, actor marries actor who has done acting roles in the past. That's not, I know what you mean, where you're like, this person married this person. Yeah. I remember, very tangent, we'll go back to comic after this. I remember finding out that, the comedian Sarah Silverman?
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still married, but at one time she married Michael Sheen.
She did, yeah.
And I remember hearing that, I was like, those two. Like, I should not care at all what adults who I've never met are doing.
One that really surprised me recently, what's his name? Lead singer of the 1975.
No idea.
Matthew, the lead singer of the 1975.
Yeah.
Well-known kind of vagabond drug addict. His mum is one of the loose women, and his dad was in Benidorm and Auf Wiedersehen, Pet.
We should also say Loose Women is a TV show in the UK.
Yeah. Loose Women is like a panel show.
Yeah.
It's like a daytime panel show where a bunch of women talk about issues.
It's the UK version of The View for American listeners. They call it The View in America.
Do they?
Yeah. Speaking of View, Vision. And speaking of Vision, Sentry.
Hey, we brought it back, baby. You can tell when I didn't like the comic.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I just don't want to talk about it at all.
Yeah, and like we said up top, it was an interesting concept that just kind of devolved into... maybe this was revolutionary for the time, potentially.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the ending, because there's a thing on that which may or may not be considered revolutionary, depending on if you've seen a certain film that came out a year before or not. But yeah, it is just the execution became like you're going to be the superhero in the end. There is one twist at the very end, which people now know if you know the Sentry character. But before you get to that twist, it is just a lot of like build up and stuff. And like,
should we talk about the twist then?
Yeah, I think, the only stuff I was going to say was the comparison to Superman before we tangented. But the very obvious comparisons are power of 1,000 suns. His power comes from the sun. Superman is powered by the sun.
Yeah.
He has a fortress of solitude, basically. But I can't remember. It's called the Sentry Fortress or something, whatever. There's a scene where they talk about his death in quote marks.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. They were doing a lot of Marvel old stuff, like comparison. For his death, they literally recreate the Death of Superman cover, where his cape is on a stick over like this rubble and stuff. I thought it was interesting they did such a direct, like, it's like that DC character.
Such a direct homage to it.
Exactly. Yeah. But then also, it's Marvel Superman, so it kind of makes sense. I'm just surprised they went that overt with the comparison.
Hard,
But he's basically Marvel Superman. That's why there's so many comparisons.
Yeah.
So, twist at the end is right before revealing the twist, if someone might not know it by chance, what did you think of the build-up of the Void character? And like, was it enough for you to be interested?
No.
Did you feel? Yeah.
At this point, I was struggling to maintain focus on the comic book.
Yeah.
If I'm honest with you.
No, I 100% agree. I think when there was still speculation, and again, saying this hypothetically as if I didn't know the character was the character, I think if it was, they'd maintained this mystery of, is he just a crazy person or is he actually a superhero? The Void character, I think, was a good representation of whatever this darkness is, the mental illness that's making him think all this stuff.
It's clearly not internal. It's clearly something external.
Yes, but when it could have been internal, that was far more interesting.
As
soon as he gets confirmed for being a superhero, then you go, oh, the Void must be real then.
Yeah.
And that kind of loses a bit. And then the twist payoff at the end, I think, doesn't have as much impact as when the twist could have been the Void is in your head and it's not real.
Yeah.
So the twist is at the end, the Void is real, but it is also the Sentry. The Sentry is the Void.
Yeah.
And that's why he's being used in this Thunderbolts thing coming up, because they're essentially using the Void as the big antagonist. So they're not really...
Is the Sentry one of the heroes?
No, so the Sentry... So what the plot of the Thunderbolts from the trailers and everything is they're hired to rescue a guy who is revealed to be Bob Reynolds. And that's all the trailers are showing. They're rescuing a guy, and then this dark evil force turns up.
Yeah.
If you know the character, you know he's not only the Void, the antagonist of the film, he's also the Sentry, who is the most powerful hero who will be the most powerful hero in the MCU.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that they're using this character. They're trying to use a twist that only the hardcore fans know.
Yeah, and so they'll be happy about it because I think a big part of the MCU's appeal for hardcore comic book fans is that they already know and they get to be smug in the cinema.
Oh, yeah. Comic book fans, speaking on behalf of, we love being smug when we know the shit.
I've watched MCU films with you in the cinema and you've like nudged me and been like,
that's Stan Lee.
This is the bit that's about to be interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like I've watched you have that experience and it looks quite gratifying.
Yes, exactly.
So I get it. I totally get why they would do this, because there hasn't been that heavy... I suppose the last sort of heavy piece of fan service in the MCU was bringing back Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, but that was more of a previous film fan service rather than a comic book fan service, yeah.
We haven't had like heavy comic book fan service maybe since like Bucky Barnes.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Bucky
Winter
definitely.
Soldier stuff.
Yeah, Winter Soldier, I think, definitely would have had that impact for big comic book nerds when they were like, "Oh, it's fucking Bucky."
To be fair, I think the other one, more recent one, and potentially bigger one, is the Infinity War snap. So the Thanos snap happens in the comics, and half of life in the universe is killed. So that, I think you did have comic book fans anticipating, not even that it was definitely going to happen, just that they were like, maybe they're going to do the snap.
Yeah.
And people who don't know that, they're just like, Thanos is a bad guy and he's getting some stones. Like, they're really powerful. Maybe he's going to do some shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think the people who didn't know the comic book lore knew what was going to happen. I think what was interesting with that was, speaking as someone who knew of the snap and that they were probably going to do it, it still hit really hard that they ended the film after the snap.
I mean, the fact that they ended it with Peter Parker fading out in Tony Stark's arms after they'd invested so much in that relationship was pretty heavy.
I think ending it, the real ballsy move was finishing the superheroes story with that, or the death, and Captain America just being like, there's someone else I think asked him, like, did we lose? Like that.
Yeah.
And then cut to Thanos retiring to his
cabin
destination cabin retirement home and just staring at the sunset and smiling, and then cutting to credits. I thought, like, I remember my feeling, like how I felt watching that in the cinema. I was like, it wasn't even like, I can't believe they did it. It's not that I can't believe they did that story point. It's that they finished the film on that, and they weren't even like, don't worry guys, the Avengers are coming back and everything's going to be fine.
It hadn't been announced yet, had it?
So what's interesting is, originally, before it was even conceived or filmed what the story was going to be, it was confirmed they were doing a 2-part Avengers film, right?
Oh, right, okay.
But then they very purposefully wiped all that away and were like, yeah, Infinity War, big Avengers film, get excited, not mentioning anything else. So at one point, it was like the technical stuff where they were like, yeah, we'll probably do a 2-parter for this third Avengers film and whatever. And then as soon as they started getting within kind of eyesight of actually releasing that stuff, they were like, one Avengers film. We've never mentioned another one. Don't even ask about it.
Because they wanted it to have that impact.
Exactly. And I think they did a really good job of that, to be fair. But yeah, so with the Thunderbolts, I think what's interesting compared to this comic is they're actually introducing the Void first, rather than the Sentry. So maybe Sentry's going to be like a third act, like even the playing field kind of thing. But like, I mean, here we had Sentry and Void fighting in the end, and we don't really know if it was just in Sentry's head.
Yeah, because how could they be, right?
But then the problem is, Sentry's powers are so powerful and can do so much. Maybe he can create another body for this other personality and they fight or whatever.
Just so he can have a little scrap with his mental illness.
But then I think, that's the point. They could have done something a lot more interesting, which just maybe wasn't in the scope of comics in the noughties.
Yeah.
They could have had, I think what would have been interesting is him fighting the Void, and he's like, come on, help me. Like, I've got him. Like, someone give me a hand. And someone's like, Bob, you're fine yourself.
Yeah.
Like, no one's there. I thought that would have been a good, like, but instead they kind of build up in that big way of like, big reveal. The Sentry and the Void are the same person. Like, I think it would have been like a really good deflating, like, big superpower, like stereotypical lasers firing, shadow tendrils and whatever, and then him to be like, come on, someone help, and they're just like, Bob, wake up. And then he just has this son of, oh my god, like, something's wrong with me. Like, so they could have done a lot. Maybe they'll do something like that with the Thunderbolts potentially. But
so who are the Thunderbolts? Has the Thunderbolts got other heroes from the Marvel roster, or are they all new?
So it's all existing characters.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting is it's kind of Dark Avengers versus it's kind of Dark Avengers / Marvel's version of Suicide Squad. So
are they doing the same thing that they did with the Avengers, where they're basically taking a bunch of unloved characters and seeing if they can make movie magic with them?
Yeah, literally, yeah. So what's interesting is the Thunderbolts name. This is probably something we should have touched on in the beginning, but this will be the end episode tangent because we've talked about as much with the comic as I think we can.
As I care to do.
Let's talk about the film that we're doing this for, which is apparently meant to be quite good.
I mean, I think that's an interesting and valid use of space on the comic book podcast.
Yeah, why not? So, and we could have done a Thunderbolts comic, but the problem is it's only it only shares the comic book name of the comic book team. Sorry, it only shares the name of the team from the comic books. That's it.
None of the heroes are the same. No, so is the Sentry not in the Thunderbolts?
No, not even. Actually, yes, he was. So,
no, there's so much lore.
So, I very quickly explained. So what happened was, in the Avengers, there was a point where all the Avengers were gone for some reason. Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head what big cross-tie event they were gone for. But there was no Avengers at one point, right? Yeah. So what happened was, it was someone basically was revealed, like, there's a new team here, and they're kind of backed by S.H.I.E.L.D. I think it was like S.H.I.E.L.D. have got together these heroes. We've got a new Avengers while the old ones are gone. So everything's fine. We are protected. So it was a roster of heroes, or people thought were existing heroes. And then the reveal is they're not actually the heroes. They are villains posing as the heroes. Right. So of the examples I can think of, so there was a character in an Iron Man outfit who was revealed to be Norman Osborn, who was actually the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., who had become the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. that time as well. So that's the reveal of, like, oh, these are the Dark Avengers. Yeah. You had, I think it was, what was it, Scorpion or Venom being, like, the Spider-Man stand-in. Yeah. Wolverine's son, Daken, was pretending to be Wolverine. And then they had Sentry in the roster as well. Yeah. So the reason is that, like I say, none of these characters are in the film they're doing. So there was kind of no point doing that comic when it was just the team name. And that's
Whereas actually talking about Sentry here makes a lot of sense. Or more importantly, talking about the Void.
The Void and Sentry, yes. Yeah. In the MCU, what they're doing is they're doing a lot of characters with similar power styles. There's a lot of Bucky Barnes is in it, Winter Soldier.
We love Bucky.
Yeah, he's a bloody senator now. He's a US senator in the MCU.
Oh, what? Did that happen in the last film?
It was revealed he was running for Senate, I think. So I think he becomes senator in this because there's a bit where he's in like a courtroom, like a hearing.
US Senator Barnes.
Yes, and also the Winter Soldier as well. He's an ex-Russian asset who somehow got into American politics, which is in no way reflective of what's happening in the real life. But so, yeah, Bucky's in it. You got Yelena, who is the new Black Widow. She's kind of the pseudo sister of the previous Black Widow. You've got Red Guardian, who's the Russian Captain America.
Isn't he played by
the guy from Stranger Things? Can't remember his name.
The one who just cheated on Lily Allen.
Yes, which I didn't know about until you mentioned recently.
David
Harbour.
David Harbour.
I think we did the exact same thing last time, where you said David, and then that made me remember Harbour. We've got Taskmaster, who's from a Black Widow film, who's surprisingly absent from a lot of the video clips from the trailers and the promotional stuff, so maybe doesn't last that long in the film. We will see. Okay. Who else we got? We got Ghost, who's from an Ant-Man film that didn't do well, so maybe people don't remember them as much. We've got evil Captain America, who USA Agent, I think he was called, but he was in the TV show Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They gave him the super soldier serum, and then it turns out he's not all good, and it made him go a bit mental, and he decapitated a terrorist with his shield in public in front of everyone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So they really are just scraping the bottom of the barrel for the dregs of like characters that were underutilized elsewhere in the MCU, throwing them together in a big ensemble and hoping people want to go and watch it.
I will say with this, I don't think it was thrown together as much. I think it was more pre-planned. I think they were introducing them and other stuff in preparation for this film. I think they did. I think they intentionally wanted to make these are the guys that everyone else has forgotten about, but they're going to pull it through and become a team and save the day. They're trying to do their version of Suicide Squad, essentially.
And I suppose they set it up in a quite a big way at the end of the last Avengers run that like the Avengers are gone now.
Yeah, essentially,
like, Tony Stark's out of the game. He's hanging out with his wife. No, Tony Stark's dead, right?
Tony Stark's dead.
Tony Stark's
big sacrifice.
Dead.
Captain America's old.
Steve Rogers is old. No one remembers who Peter Parker is anymore,
so Spider-Man's kicking about, but yeah, Peter's not remembered anymore. Vision's dead. Scarlet Witch is dead.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange is kicking about. I should go through the entire bloody roster and probably won't remember everyone.
Black Widow's still about, isn't she?
Yeah.
No, she died.
She died. That's why we've got a new one now.
She sacrificed herself for what's his face, didn't she?
For Hawkeye, for the Soul Stone.
They fought over it, didn't they?
They fought over who got to sacrifice themselves, yeah. Hawkeye is retired.
Because he's with his wife.
Yep, wife and kids. And yeah, so most of the Avengers, Captain Marvel's probably off planet.
Great actor.
Linda
Cardinelli.
Cardinelli, yes.
Linda Cardinelli.
That's why we're a good podcasting team. One of us gets the first name, the other remembers the surname.
Triggers the other one.
Yes.
Because we like Linda Cardinelli, because I really like Freaks and Geeks.
And she's great in the Scooby-Doo films.
Oh, she's great in the Scooby-Doo films.
Especially when she thought that skin tight body suit thing.
Right, Ryan, we both knew what we were both referencing. We didn't need to actually reference it.
I'm just being open and honest. It was a great scene. James Gunn knew what he was doing. And now he's doing Superman.
Isn't it wild that James Gunn made the Scooby-Doo films?
I think they're as good as they could be because of him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, they had no business being as good as they were.
No. So one last point I want to end on, I think you'll find this interesting.
Yeah.
The reveal that the main character is actually also this other character.
Yeah.
Very, very Fight Club coded, right?
Yeah.
Fight Club came out in 1999. This comic came out in 2000.
Yeah.
Do we think that they intentionally used the idea, or do we think they was independently thought of?
Oh, such a good question, isn't it?
Because there was a big spree after Fight Club of this using this idea, plot point being used, wasn't there? Yeah.
And
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but this is probably the biggest example.
No, there are. If we search for them, there would be examples.
It's a trope of like you were the antagonist the whole time. Yeah. I played a game called The Suffering on like the original Xbox, and that was a reveal in the sequel. There's like this big bad gangster who's ruining your life, and you got to do something about them, and everyone's under their control. Oh, it turns out it's you. Split personality. It's the split personality thing is the twist that gets used a lot. Because
you like Chuck Palahniuk, don't you? And he's one author that you have actually read quite extensively.
When I did read books, I read a bunch of his books. Yeah.
Have you read Fight Club?
Yeah, a couple of times.
And you've seen the film?
Yes.
Isn't it different?
Not that much. The themes are still quite strong.
The themes are really strong, but that reveal, I think, hits a bit different when you're not physically seeing it.
Yeah, when there's not clues being visually shown to you.
Because at the end of the Fight Club movie, they literally show you, what's his name?
The narrator is the character. Ed Norton, the actor.
They literally show Ed Norton's character doing all the things we've already seen Tyler Durden do.
Yes.
And kind of like it really hammers it home, whereas at the end of the book, you kind of have to piece it together.
Well, the thing with the book was, apparently, and I read this years ago, so I don't know how true this is or if it's something I've made up somehow and internalized. I swear I can remember Palahniuk saying at one point, he wrote most of the book and then went, what if they were the same person?
Yeah.
So intentionally, the book does not have, unless he went back and put them in
post-editing. It doesn't have those little nods to it.
But the thing about his writing style as well, and I've not read many other books, so maybe you can comment on this. He writes in the style where it's very specific, like you are kind of almost tunnel visioned in on whatever he's writing about. So if it's a conversation or a character's going somewhere, he doesn't give much scene setting. It's very much like what the character's doing and little details and stuff like that. So whereas with a film, you do kind of have to show the entire scene because you're filming in a real place and that kind of stuff. So yeah, they had to put more visual clues in the film. Also, maybe as just a nod. Again, the book readers being like, I know what the ending's going to be, like the comic book fans.
There needs to be something else for them to be interested in because, again, anything that has a twist ending is not going to be as impactful once you know the twist ending, right? Yeah.
And Fight Club became almost like a shorthand for the twist at the end is the two characters are the same person. And maybe it kind of reduced Fight Club a little bit in that way post kind of release.
I think... So I don't think Fight Club would have been a lesser book or a lesser film without the twist ending.
Yeah.
Because there's such a strong theme in both. That extreme of like anarchy and anti-fascist and anti-capitalism running through it is so strong that I think it holds up without the twist ending. But Chuck Palahniuk saw it and went, fuck, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I think it literally has no kind of bearing on the themes or anything at all. No. I think it is just like this twist ending. At most, it fits with this idea of a character imagining an idealized version of himself and then becoming it.
But also it kind of, a character who can't sleep. And it's like, well, what was he doing during all those hours when he now thought he was sleeping after he found Fight Club, right?
Well, yeah, I think what it was, he thought he was just kind of, when he wasn't sleeping, he thought he was just staring at the TV and because he describes it's not it's not quite being awake, but it's not sleep either. It's this kind of limbo where you're not even aware of your surroundings or what you're doing, but you know you're not asleep. So I think that's the window where the Tyler Durden character started coming about.
Yeah.
You know what's really interesting? And I just remember this. Palahniuk did a Fight Club 2 and Fight Club 3 in graphic novel form.
Did he?
And they are really messed up. Imagine all the stuff. Like, years ago since I read them, and I can't really comment on like the quality of them. They get really meta. Like, they get really like self-referential on the series and stuff. I think it was Palahniuk's way of almost being like, I don't want to do a Fight Club 2. So if there's a demand for it, I'm almost going to insult you with what I'm making.
Fuck you. Which
then becomes more earnest than an author doing a cash grab sequel, if that makes sense.
It's more Palahniuk, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, 100%. He's even in it, I think, at one point as well. Like, so, yeah, they're very weird. I would never do an episode of this because I don't think there's a market for it in the kind of online space.
Yeah.
But, maybe in the Patreon days when we get to that point, maybe that'll be like look, it's really weird comic we're talking about.
Yeah, a really weird comic based on a film and a book that even if you've not seen or read it, you're probably familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean that when people I've heard personal trainers say that when people bring them a physique that they want, it's always Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
At the most cut and toned that a person could possibly be, especially around that time.
Yeah, I mean, you think about what superhero physiques were in the early 2000s. When did Fight Club come out?
99.
No, when did the film come out?
99. The book came out in 96.
Wow, 3 years later.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a fucking physique for the 90s.
Yeah.
Because there has been a bit of creep there, hasn't there?
Yeah, I think Brad Pitt was one of those like genetically blessed people who could do that without as much sacrifice and
because he likes to smoke and eat and drink. Like, he likes life.
He was young enough that he could, do that back then.
Yeah.
So I think we've exhausted the Sentry talk, but as I said, we did the Thunderbolts, and Thunderbolts is coming out.
And Fight Club.
And Fight Club, which I can't put in the title or description or anything because it gives away people know about Sentry now. Is Sentry Marvel's Fight Club?
There you go. You've got the clickbait title.
I already know. Is Sentry Marvel's Superman? That's gonna get all of them. Or the Avenger that you don't remember.
Yeah,
maybe something like that.
That's pretty good. I think
the strongest Avenger you don't remember.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
love a clickbait title that's actually kind of true as well. Yeah. It's true enough that I feel fine using it.
Right, so we will see you next week.
Yes. I have not got anything planned for next week. You know what? I'll find something non-superhero because we've done a lot of superhero stuff for a few weeks.
I'm a bit fatigued.
Yeah. I'll give you a break with something that may be good, may be bad. I don't know until
we'll
we get
find
there,
out together.
But it'll be interesting. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Right. Peace out, everyone. I hope you have a lovely time. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you. Bye.
And thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to get notified of our future episodes as well. And if you're feeling particularly generous, then please leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're using. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then send an email to comiclit@gmail.com. You can also watch videos by me on the Comic Stand YouTube page, which is linked in the description. Thank you, goodbye.